Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to help to educate you so that you feel comfortable and confident to having more control in investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever wanted to know how you could go from being a full-time corporate citizen to building a real estate portfolio and businesses that help you to get to financial freedom based on growth, income, as well as wealth preservation, even if you have 4 kids and you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth. If that's your case, then you're definitely going to want to be a part of this episode and listen all the way to the very end. Because today's guest comes from a very humble background. As I mentioned, is a full-time mom that was in a full-time corporate job in the financial services sector, and actually even worked with the top 10% wealthiest of the clients at the bank. She has been a key partner, a limited partner. She's been part of joint ventures. She's a best-selling author, as well as the founder of REI Mom and Zenith Capital Group. And I'm really excited to welcome to the show today, Anna Kelley. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me, Billy. It's an honor to be here today.
I am so looking forward to this conversation. Just in our pre-chat, I was like, oh man, this is going to be really, really awesome. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you.
So Anna, like to always ask the first 2 questions. They're always the same. The very first question, would love to know, help our audience know, what city are you in today?
I am just outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania, in a little town called Annville that no one's ever heard of. But it's about 20 minutes from the capital of Pennsylvania, which is Harrisburg.
Okay, fantastic. Actually, last summer, 2 summers ago, and family went to Hershey Park. So it was all me and my brother and sister and all of our nieces and nephews. So that was a lot of fun.
Yes,
lovely
that's
place.
Our claim to fame. Hershey Park, all the chocolate.
Yep, it's wonderful, wonderful area. So thanks for that, Anna. Also, what is the most positive thing that has happened to you in the last 24 hours?
You know, in the last 24 hours, it's really not real estate related. It's really related to systems. So there's some things that I've been wanting to do for my business that I've really not had the time to do and learn related to technology. Mm-hmm. And I launched my coaching program again recently. And someone reached out to me who is an expert at the tech and hiring VAs, virtual assistants, which is something I've been wanting to do. So basically, we had a phone conversation, and he's going to help me get my first VA launched and up off the ground, and in exchange for some coaching and consulting. And then another expert in hiring VAs is going to come alongside, and I'm hiring him to help me. So I'm really excited to be able to learn something new with technology, take advantage of, the ability to hire some people that can work for me full time in the Philippines. That'll be a blessing to them and a blessing to me.
Fantastic. Well, those are a couple of different things that we're working on as well. So wonderful working on your business, being able to have people on your team, part of your vision, part of your mission, and part of your values. Fantastic. So this is great foundation. And so, Anna, I know I've talked about a couple of things, just really highlights, right, in terms of the different things that you've done as part of your journey to where you are today. But could you help us to fill in the gaps, give us a better idea about your backstory, please?
Sure. So I had started out my financial career at Bank of America, where I was a private banker. And so what that means is that we worked together, our stockbrokers, our insurance professionals, and then me as their personal advisor, to look at people's financials holistically and say, where are you today? Where do you want to go with your wealth? And our clients were the top 10% of the most wealthy clients in the bank. So most of them had already built some finances and built some wealth, but most of them were still working, and they, like everybody else, wanted to grow their wealth, create more income, and then do it safely in a way that they could preserve their wealth. And so I learned all about retail investments. And I had a couple of clients who made more money in real estate than the returns that we were able to offer through our products at the bank. And back in the late 90s, our returns were much, much better than what they are today in terms of mutual funds and annuities and those types of things. And so it piqued my interest into real estate. And long story short, I was very driven up the corporate world. I had left Bank of America and started to work for AIG, training their people on variable products and annuities, and moved up into product development and created some really sophisticated hedge funds for our clients to invest in onshore and offshore. And I absolutely loved my career. I loved what I was doing, but I had a baby, Billy. And when I held that baby in my arms, there was nothing more important to me. Like everything else went out the window. So money and drive and the personal satisfaction of doing a job that you love took a back seat to my desire to be a mom and to be home with my kids and to really create quality time with my child. But my husband, had started a business and with a lot of debt, he had a lot of school debt, and I couldn't stay home with my child because I made a lot more money than he did and we had so much debt. So I thought, how am I going to do this? And long story short, I watched a lot of HGTV on flipping houses, our American television on, you're going to make all this money flipping houses. And we thought maybe that's the way. So I flipped a house with a 3-month-old baby and thought, let's try to do this. It was hard, a lot harder than we thought, putting in the sweat equity and going forward without much experience. And we said, we're not going to do that again. So took a couple of years, just continued to hustle, to help my husband, get his business going, worked. But I always had this, I just want to be home with my kids. And so it was a constant struggle between excelling at my job and being home. And so I decided to start buying rental real estate. We moved from Texas to Pennsylvania, started my husband's business in 2007, height of the market, thought entrepreneurship is the way. Then the market crashed, and working for AIG, my security was gone. My husband's security was changing with healthcare changes in the US. I thought I was losing my job, and I lost more than 2/3 of my 401k in just a couple week period. So all the things that I had been taught were safe and, how I grow wealth, a corporate job and entrepreneurship and the stock market, I learned that they were on shaky sand and shaky ground. And the only thing that really did well during that time was my couple of rental properties. And I said, I've got to buy more rental property, take control of my financial future, replace my income, and then eventually grow wealth that way. And so I started on that journey of buying rentals, being a sole proprietor. My husband and I bought properties, worked on them, fixed them up, created that cash flow until I got to a point where I could replace my 6-figure income at AIG and retire. So I did that in May. And just before I did that, I started to really scale up my investing. I knew I wanted to buy much larger apartment buildings with partners and create, exponential returns compared to what I had been able to do alone on the smaller scale. So I got into larger multifamily. And today I'm retired from the corporate career and I am a multifamily operator. I invest both actively and generate those returns. And then I also have transitioned all of my retirement accounts to investing in real estate in different ways. And I'm invested passively in about 2,000 multifamily doors, as well as self-storage and some other assets.
Well, first of all, congratulations on that early retirement, which is fantastic, and having this clarity in terms of what you want to be able to do. And I know you're doing a lot to also help others. But one of the things that comes to mind as I hear you sharing your story with us, you've kind of pivoted, right? Because you started in an area which was purely financial services in with Bank of America, and also AIG for more of the insurance brand of financial services, I guess, and then really looking to real assets. So can you maybe talk to us a little bit about how that previous experience has also helped you see even more of the light in terms of assets contrasted, or the real assets contrasting against maybe more paper assets?
Absolutely. I think the primary thing that I love about real assets is you have some more level of control and you have more real value, real intrinsic value in the assets that you're purchasing versus something like the stock market, where the value that you pay for that stock or that piece of ownership is really more in line with market sentiment than it is the real valuation of that company. So if you look at a lot of companies today and you look at their PE earnings and you look at the debt that they have on the book, the price of their stock is significantly higher than what the companies are actually worth, to put it lightly. And so in the American stock market, and probably not unlike, the European exchanges as well, the market is generally overvalued. And so what that does is it creates wider and deeper cycles. And so the economy goes in cycles and the markets go in cycles, and you have bull markets and you have bear markets. But when prices are elevated and they're no longer congruent with the real value of the companies, there's a lot more risk. So not only do you have to wait for the right timing of the cycle, if you want to retire when there's an up market, great, you can cash out. But if you need to retire and there's a down market or there's a crash or a correction, you're in trouble. And I saw lots of people go through trouble prior to 2009 and then in 2008 and 2009, including myself. And so the timing and the risk of not having control and understanding of how that stock is really valued that you're investing in was something that I learned the hard way, that went completely against everything I had been trained to tell my clients, and I had been trained about the stock market. Then you deal with fees and tax returns and inflation. And by the time that you get your 10% average return over the long time in the stock market, and you look at inflation's hit on that and the taxes hit on that and the fees for going in and out, you're left with 2 or 3% if you can time it well. And so I just realized, there's a lot less attraction to being in paper assets than what I had been trained and taught. And I saw people, that invested in hedge funds that took a lot more risk, but got a lot higher returns for investing in hedge funds and securities that had things like real estate in them. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost. But I realized the power of being able to invest in something that historically always goes up in value. And even though you still have market cycles and you might have some increases or decreases in valuation of like single family homes, when you move to commercial assets, they're primarily valued based on the net income they generate. So if you can understand you have a real asset, you can impact the income that is created and you can impact the expenses. So if you can increase the income, decrease the expenses, you can create significant multi-million-dollar value changes in that asset based on something you can do to control it. So it's easier to understand, it's easier to control, and even with market cycles, you can buy in such a way that even if you have to sell when you're a little low, you've made so much money in income and tax benefits and in natural appreciation and mortgage paydown that it just was a no-brainer for me. It was like a light bulb that this is what I need. And it helped me to transition almost completely away from paper assets and only invested into real assets today.
So that really served you great benefit to being able to kind of look behind the curtain, really understand how things were working in that paper assets world. And then from that, you were able to recognize that from a real asset perspective that had true intrinsic value. Number one, it was the proof of concept was easier to understand. And number two, as a result, was easier to control, which is something that is really important, especially when you are looking to make sure that your capital is working for you as much as possible.
Absolutely. And even if you don't have the time or the wherewithal to actually be the one in control, you can invest with other operators who have that experience, that that they have been able to competently control the value of those assets and make returns. And so just having a better understanding, I have found that most of my investors and myself have a much higher confidence level of what we're investing in because it's fairly easy to understand the fundamentals and how they're valued and to understand the risk. Where most of us, Billy, if we're real honest with ourselves, when we pick mutual funds and stocks to invest in, we're trusting a broker. We're looking at past performance and assuming that they can make the same returns, even though we're reading past performance is not indicative of future returns. And so I just love the fact that there's real value in real estate and hard assets that's easier to understand, control, or trust other people to control to minimize your risk.
And that's another fantastic point. And one of the things that you shared with us earlier that as you were able to walk away from your corporate role, I know that you were slowly but surely adding real assets to your portfolio. You got to a point where there were, I think, 70 assets in your portfolio, and that allowed you to kind of do the exit stage left, if you will.
Yes.
At the same time, if I understand this correctly, there was silently this motor in the background that was also generating. And that was the way that you were, as you just talked about, investing in this proof of concept that was easy to understand with other people. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you had those two operating together, meaning that you were being an active investor on one side, at the same time you had this silent accelerator as a limited partner or investing passively with others?
I'll tell you this, for me, it wasn't simultaneous
Okay.
until I retired, really.
Okay.
So for the most part, I was building up my income with sweat equity. So I was taking action and I was buying assets for our own portfolio that we owned 100% of.
Okay.
And so what tends to happen, Billy, is people are on one side of a continuum. You either have a lot of money and no time, like many of us, many professionals, and therefore it doesn't make sense for you to, buy assets that you've got to put in a lot of time. Or you have no money and you have time, or you can make time. We all say we don't have time. We can make time. So I'm proof of that. I started out with no money. So I had lost so much in the stock market, and my husband's business wasn't doing well. We had just started a business at the height of the economy, and we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in business startup debt. So we had no choice but to take the active route at first, because we needed to produce that value with our own hands and with our own mind and doing it ourselves. So we continued to buy our own assets, take the equity that we generated in the cash to use as down payments to do it over and over and over again. What happened is slowly over time, as we got to a point where we didn't live on any of it. We just let it keep growing and kept reinvesting it. So we still lived on our, my AIG salary basically. And we were building something on the side. And at the point that it pretty far surpassed my income, and I knew that if I never worked another day of my life, then I would be okay and we could just enjoy the cash flow. At that point, I said, I'm going to retire, and I'm going to take all of my retirement funds and I'm going to invest it in real assets through my self-directed 401k. And then I'm going to start partnering with others. And so because I retired and built it, it allowed me to now shift to where now I'm on this other continuum where I can continue to buy assets for our own portfolio. And I do. And I run and operate large multifamily, projects. But what I do is when I make my fee up front for putting those deals together and putting in the hours and the time, to do those deals and to bring in investors and to make a return, I take those fees and I invest it either with other operators or I invest it in more deals for myself. And so now I'm in this beautiful place where I can operate really good deals, and I can take that cash and give it to others to operate so that I don't have to be as active, and I can set it and forget it, trust them to make me those returns, even while I'm doing the same thing for other people. So now there's a true blending in a marriage, but it took me time to get to that point where I could do both.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And thank you for that clarification. I think that's phenomenal. It actually makes me I have a question. What role or what effect do you think, because I read it in the beginning that you don't come from a family with a silver spoon in your mouth, and I see you overachieving. You were working as a full-time mom, because I still say that's it's the profession in the world that is, once done properly, it's the best in the world, and also many times is the one that people don't recognize the most when you're not in the four walls of your own home.
Right.
But being able to not only be full-time mom, you had the full-time corporate job, which was demanding, and you were building your own real estate portfolio at the same time. Your husband was building a business.
Yes.
What role do you think your beginnings have played in terms of you being able to achieve so much?
I think it had a significant impact, Billy, because I think in order to drive and achieve, you've got to have a really, really strong reason to do it. And for myself, I'll try to make a long story real short, but for myself, I grew up, I had a single mom, and she was in several abusive marriages. And so I was the oldest of 6 kids. I had to kind of take on a parenting role and a lot of responsibility while my mom worked a second job. And I lived in Section 8 housing, and it was really rough growing up. And so I always saw that, I had friends whose parents seemed to have it all, that, were doctors and lawyers and drove nice cars. And in my mind as a kid, money was the answer, money, and not being in a relationship with an abusive person. So I learned through that I have got to do whatever it takes that I can make the most money. So I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get a scholarship. I'm going to be the best at everything that I did so that I could get a degree and I could have money and then not be dependent on a man. And I don't mean that like man bashing, but when you see stepfathers that are abusive and your mother can't get out because she can't afford childcare, you have this drive that I have to become independent and I have to be able to take care of myself, whether I have a spouse that leaves in the future or a spouse that dies in the future. I've got to take control of my finances so that I can have freedom of my life and not ever be in that cycle, that cycle of poverty. So that really propelled me to have that drive. And it also, once I became a mother, all I wanted to do was be home with my babies because I knew how hard it was having my mom have to work 2 jobs. So I had to really balance that I'm going to build this and it's going to take a lot of time, but I have to have tons and tons of quality and quantity time with my kids while I do it. So it was a balancing act, but I knew that putting in this hard work now, and I took my kids everywhere I did, everywhere I went. They slept on the floors of rental properties. I can't tell you a zillion times. They hated it, but we were always together. Yeah. So I knew that I was building something that would allow me, at least in the last 10 years that they were home with me, to really have complete freedom. And so I did it for my kids, but because I came from such humble beginnings, I wanted to give better to them as a mom, pouring in more time to them, and create the financial freedom for them to teach them how, so that they didn't end up back in that cycle of abuse and poverty that so many of my family members were in.
I absolutely love that story, and just having that motor, and it goes beyond the money. It's really about being able to provide and that time freedom, that ability to have quality time with one another. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. It's it's phenomenal.
Billy, because really, if you're doing something just for the money, you'll get burnt out, you'll get tired, and you'll never find fulfillment. It's really about creating the life that you design and that you desire by design, and using money as a tool to help you to create that. So if you're working, 50, 60 hours a week to take care of your family and to have some fun trips and things like that, money is a way to allow you to have a little bit less stress and having to trade your time for dollars every single day. If I want these dollars, I got to put in the time. If you can create the financial freedom by making smart investments and smart choices today, it allows you to have more coming in that you don't have to think about and work for, so that now you can trade less time for the dollars and spend more quality time living your life that you dream of and imagine. And that's what it's always been about for me.
And it's phenomenal. And those are the types of things when you talk about really clinging to your why, this is another one of the reasons that helps us. And that's a motor that goes beyond finances. Now, I want to pick up on one of the things that you said there, and I completely agree with you. And I love that thought. And I can see it's also one of the areas of passion that you have. And you talked about that you didn't want other women to feel like they had to be dependent on a man. Completely understanding where you're coming from there. And I know that you're really passionate about helping to educate everyone. And you also have a special focus as well in helping to educate women to be able to go out. You're very passionate about it, being able to go out and build legacy as well, and doing that through real estate. So can you talk to us maybe a little bit more about that? You've started to share a little bit with us already, but it'd be great if you could expand on that.
So I have family members and I have friends, men and women alike, that all kind of want that same thing. They want financial freedom. They want to be able to live the life that they can enjoy and not be a slave to a job the rest of their life, And so I'm passionate really about helping everyone, but I have this sweet spot for women because I saw the struggle that my mom went through, and extremely intelligent, but sometimes, if we don't know what we don't know and we don't know how to get out of it, we're stuck. And it's proven in the cycle of poverty. And it's proven too, when when women feel like they can't achieve more, they don't have the skills or the know-how or the time because they're busy doing that important work as a mom. And I've also known women whose husbands have passed away and they had nothing to do with the finances. They had no idea what to do. Their husbands didn't leave them insurance. And so then they struggle to work two jobs because they have to, and then they don't have that time with their kids. And as women, not being able to spend time with your kids, there's nothing worse. It just pulls at your heartstring and you've got this mother's guilt. And so I've been there, I've been through it, I've walked aside other women. And so for me, it's not about not depending and having good relationship with men. Like I could not have built what I did without my husband. Like he put in the physical work while I put in the financial work, so we did it together. But I also understood that I had to be independent enough that I understood how money was created and how to use it as a tool so that whatever life brought me in the future, because we just don't know, I would be okay. And I'd be able to teach my daughters how to be okay. And there are unfortunately a lot of women who are in abusive marriages that don't know their way out, don't have a way out, or their spouse, is sick and they don't think they're going to be able to provide. And so it just makes my heart go out to so many women that are struggling financially, that want to give all their time to their kids, want to be a good wife, want to be a good mom, but they just don't know any other way. And so giving them the financial tools that shows them how to create wealth that will work for them and to build it over time is just something that I think is really empowering and life-changing and generational.
Wow, so many different ways to go with that. And the fact that you are continuing to do that, it makes me think there are also the women that are in a position where even if it's not a negative situation that they have to go up, maybe they've inherited lots of capital and they just, because they were not involved in the day to day,
Yes.
there's a lack of knowledge, right? And so you're also helping those women to really gain control of their financial aspects of their life, which will then once again carry over into the quality of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And several of my coaching students are very successful entrepreneurs. They're happy with their job. They love what they're doing, but they want to be able to create that generational wealth and have those tools to be able to do that without having to put in, all the time. So there's power in knowledge and there's power in learning how to use your money and steer your money in a way that it continues to work for you, for your children, and then generation upon generation after that.
Which I think is great. And I know I talked about it in the very beginning, but in as we get ready to wrap things up, I would just ask you to talk a little bit about what you're doing, not just at REI Mom, but also, and one of the things I know that you have a specific focus in terms of networking, and there is REI Like a Girl. So maybe talk to us about those two areas and kind of what you're doing and what your teams are doing.
Sure. So REI Mom is primarily, I speak at events around the country to encourage and empower women to start getting into investing, particularly in multifamily investing, as both a general and a limited partner, so either actively or passively. And then I also have a coaching program, which I've done in the past and I've just relaunched, where I'm really giving women the opportunity for me to come alongside them, see where they are today, teach them the tools of financial freedom and financial success and investing in multifamily, and then giving them a plan that they can take, whether it's active or passive, whatever way works really with them for where they are in life, what their future goals are, financial goals, and the time and the skills that they have available. So coaching is something that's really impactful and empowering for me and for other women. And then REI Like a Girl is a local meetup group where we as women meet together and talk about, those same financial principles and kind of how to create that financial success and really learn how to yield money, to wield it in a way that's, going to help you meet your goals.
Okay, fantastic. So, and I want to just keep talking to you forever. I don't want to stop. But I know that our time is limited here, and I always like to get to a point where, I can ask you what I like to call the going long final three questions. The thing is, I never ask that question unless you tell me that you're ready for me to ask the questions. Are you
I'm
ready?
ready, Billy.
All right, awesome. Here we go. So, very first question, and what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or you plan on visiting?
So I've actually been to Russia twice, but I've never been into, the core of what you think of Europe. So we
Mhm.
were going to be taking a trip and weren't able to do that this summer, unfortunately. But we really want to get to England, to Spain, to Germany, and to Italy. We'd love
Wow.
to do all of it because there's so much culture and amazing things that I've heard about it and that I've read about it that I can't wait to get there and to take my kids. So hopefully in the next year we'll be able to really hit all of those areas.
Okay, perfect. So make sure you let me know because I lived in Italy and I've been living in Spain, of course, for the last 15 years or so. And if France is on there, let me know as well. So I have a couple of pieces of advice for
I
you.
will. Great.
Great. So thanks for that. And listen, I know that you've probably had like having success personally, professionally, entrepreneurially, if you can say that. You've probably made one or two mistakes along the way. Very few successful people that I know have done it perfectly the first time. If you can think of one lesson that you would, I guess, pass forward to someone else so they maybe don't have to pay 100% of the mistake, what would that one piece of advice be?
Find people with integrity who are already where you want to be and learn from them and partner with them. Going it alone is really tough and it slows down your growth and slows down your success. And in the beginning, I had gotten jaded by a coach that I hired that ended up being a fraud. This was like in 2008. And it kept me from trusting and wanting to get in the business with anybody else. And so my husband and I did it on our own and we did it the hard way. When I finally decided I cannot do it all and continue this pace of 70 to 80 hours a week to build what we've built. And I said, I need to start networking and partnering. My business went to a completely different level. My personal growth went to a completely different level. And I've able in a year and a half to scale and make as much money as it took me 10 years to build by just doing it with other people and being able to utilize each other's time, brain, and resources. So don't go it alone. Find mentors, invest with other really good operators that have integrity, that know what they're doing. And that's, I think, the best piece of advice I can give.
Okay. Looking at partnering and doing it effectively.
Yes.
Fantastic. So now the last question is about a book and about a book recommendation. But just before we do that, I know that I mentioned in the very beginning that you are a best-selling author. And I just wanted to let everyone know that the book is Resilience, Turning Your Setback into a Comeback. And before you give us your other book recommendation, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about resilience, please.
Sure. So Resilience is an amazing compilation book similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it was published by Kyle Wilson, who was the producer of Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneurial Soul. So it's stories of resilience and really amazing people that have stories of many, many hurdles in life and how we kind of bounced back from that with grit and resilience to create, a life that we dreamed of and to create success and good things out of difficult things. So I'm happy to give an e-copy to anybody that wants a copy. If you just email me at info@reimom.com, I'd love to make that resource available to you.
Okay, fantastic. And so with that, what other book would you recommend?
So, what I'm going to recommend to you and to your audience, Billy, is an older book, but it's really, really powerful. And it's called Multifamily Millions by Dave Lindahl. And the reason I want you to read that book, whether you invest actively or want to, or whether you're just interested in investing with an operator like us in multifamily and want to really understand how multifamily is valued so that you can understand the investment before you jump in. It's a book that really talks to you about building wealth through multifamily real estate and how they're valued, how it can be controlled, and how that income and appreciation and preservation all are powerfully mixed with multifamily investing.
That's one of my favorites. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you talked about that one. So, Multifamily Millions, Dave Lindahl, fantastic, wonderful. Anna, like I said, I just want to keep talking to you forever. And I know that our audience wants to continue to hear and learn from you, be educated by you, your wealth of knowledge. I mean, talking to us from very humble beginnings, that being a very strong motor that has helped you not only in your corporate life, it's helped you to be a wonderful, successful mother as well. Also now from being able to not only get to a point where you had 70 units in your own portfolio, now being able to scale well beyond 1,500 or 2,000 doors at this point in time, and doing it in a way that is integrity based with your business, and having a special focus, although educating everyone, really having a special focus and passion for continuing to work to engage and encourage and support women in the area of real estate investing, and really taking more control over their financial lives. This has been phenomenal. It's been really, really, really impactful as well. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us here at the Going Long podcast. So thank you very much for that, Anna.
Thank you so much. It's been my honor and my privilege to be your guest, Billy.
It has been fantastic. And there was one last thing. So I know you talked to us a little bit about the ebook, but because you've shared so much goodness with us, I'm sure that everyone's trying to figure out, like, how, aside from the book, and how can I get in touch with Anna? Like, I want to talk to her now. I want to talk to her team. What is the best way for our audience to contact you?
Great. So send me an email at info@reimom.com. And there I will respond to you, whether you're interested in coaching and consulting, or whether you're interested in investing as a passive investor in some future opportunities that we have. Send me an email. Let's start a conversation, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can.
Okay, fantastic. info@reimom.com. We'll make sure to include that as well in the show notes. So I would encourage everyone to definitely take Anna up on her offer, to reach out to her, continue to learn from her, connect with her community as well. And so, yeah, Anna, like I said, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us here today on the Going Long podcast.
Thank you, Billy.
And for all the Going Long audience, we want to once again thank you for joining us, and want to ask you to don't keep this to yourself. We want to continue to build our community with other great like-minded people. I would ask that you go out and share this episode with at least 2 or 3 other friends so we can grow together. And so this is pretty much today's episode. I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the next episode, and go out and make it a great day. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow, so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.